Okay, we're recording.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay. Now I'll actually welcome you to today's event. This is the Spring 2022 BFA Thesis Conversation series. My name is Aspen Mays and my pronouns are she and her, and I'm the chair of the photography program here at the California College of the Arts. And I just want to also speak directly to the students that we have presenting tonight.
Oh, Aspen, you're muted yourself.
Oh my gosh. Did you catch any of that? Was my beautiful speech, was I really just talking the whole time?
No. You said, and I just want to speak directly to the students that are presenting to the.
Mute myself. Okay. Only been 2 years of Zoom teaching. You'd think I would have learned a thing or two. I just want to speak directly to the students presenting as I've gotten to work with all of them.
Yeah. Because I'm trying to figure out like transportation costs right now.
Ah, the days, the delightful days. So thank you, iPhone 13 Pro Max. I've gotten to work with all of you presenting today, and it's been such a treat to work with you and a pleasure and a privilege. And I'm in awe of your ability to have navigated your college experience during a pandemic and the resilience with which you brought to your studies and to your work. So we're just really excited to celebrate you tonight. I want to also begin with a land acknowledgement. The California College of the Arts campuses are located in Huichin and Ulamo, also known as Oakland and San Francisco, respectively, on the unceded territories of Chochenyo and Ramaytush Ohlone peoples, who have continuously lived upon this land since time immemorial. We recognize the historic discrimination and violence inflicted upon Indigenous peoples in California and the Americas, including their forced removal from ancestral lands and the deliberate and systematic destruction of their communities and culture. CCA honors Indigenous peoples, past, present, and future here and around the world, and we wish to pay respect to local elders, including those of the lands from which you're joining us virtually today. If you're unsure of whose land you're currently residing upon, we encourage you to visit native-land.ca, and I can put that in the chat in just a moment. And tonight, or this afternoon, it will stretch into the early part of the evening, we're going to be celebrating 5 photography seniors. We're going to have Tsai, David Marchetti, Sam Gonzalez, Conrad, and Lavender. Each senior will give a 10-minute presentation introducing their work. After each presentation, we'll have a 10-minute conversation with the student, providing feedback and asking them questions. Please note that we won't have time during this event for a public Q&A, but we encourage attendees to drop comments and affirmations for the seniors in the Zoom chat. Hi, Tiago. And the chat transcript will be saved at the end of this event and will be sent to the seniors as a kind of virtual guest book. So yeah, that's been a highlight of this whole experience, is just seeing the kind of affirmations and things coming into the chat. So please feel free to leave comments for everyone. They will get them over after this is all done. I just want to also acknowledge Ingrid. Ooh, the trigger mute over here. Ingrid, thank you for all the work you've done to coordinate these conversations. Abner Nolan, who I'll let introduce himself in just a moment, thank you so much for being here. Abner has been teaching in our program for many years and is really a vital part of our faculty. So without further ado, we're going to get started. Abner, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself and our wonderful guest tonight, this afternoon.
Thanks, Aspen. I'm Abner Nolan. I'm a senior adjunct professor in the photography program and a little bit in the grad program at CCA. I've been teaching at CCA since the semester after I graduated from the graduate program, when CCA was CCAC, so that will date my tenure. I am thrilled to be introducing Shana Lopes, who's graciously agreed to be here to be respondent to our wonderful group of 5 BFA students. Shana is an assistant curator of photography at SF MoMA. Since her arrival at the museum in 2019, she's organized exhibitions on cyanotypes, the 1906 earthquake, the photographer Eugene Atjay, and Wright Morris. She is the co-curator of the exhibitions Constellations, Photography, Photographs and Dialogue, which pairs recent acquisitions with existing work from the collection. and a living for all of us, artists and the WPA, both of which are currently on view. I haven't seen the WPA show, but the Constellation show is a knockout. I encourage everyone to see it. Thanks, Shana, so much for joining us today.
I just want to say I'm so happy to be here and to get to speak with all of you about your work. Don't be nervous. I'm not here to judge. I'm here to help. Okay? Looking forward to it.
So I think we can kick it off with our first artist. Tung-Tsai, you want to?
Yes. Can everybody see the screen? Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Tang. I was born and raised in Taiwan. I am right now a senior graduating photography student in California College of Arts. My homeland is a political entity which has not yet been recognized by the majority of the country. I will talk about that later on in my presentation. And a little bit about me. I rarely stay in one place. At age 12, I was sent to boarding school, and ever since that, I've never lived in my hometown for a year. I've lived in different cities, and eventually I travel overseas to the United States and study photography. The title of my show, Over the Salt Water, is actually the term in Taiwan, which refers to things and people from overseas. And that's my introduction, and that's my photograph and my passport. Before I jump into my work, I would like to talk a little bit about my inspiration. So before going to the college, I knew nothing about photography. I rarely took photographs. The reason I began photography was because I couldn't register any film course in my first year of college. However, after reading the critical reading by Takuma Nakahira, a Japanese self-taught photographer, I couldn't stop thinking about photography from his early expressive work, from the photographic book called Pavak, with his really expressive style, to his technical dictionary, with no composition, with no intention of expression. Nakahira asked the most fundamental question: if photography is no more than a medium, why do we as a photographer rather choose photography, not other media? Why do we just take photo, not draw? And Nakahira's question interrogates photographer in essence, as if the most existential question to most people as a photographer. And I think most people are not even close to this answer. This question intrigued me as a photographer to respond. So in order to explore Nakahira's idea, I played the role of peeping Tom. I photographed my neighbor and strangers with large 4x5 camera or a medium format film camera. And this time I was urged to find the thing of photography which cannot be expressed through other medium. Therefore, I thought the voyeurism was the most photographic thing for me. And so I attempt to respond like Akira with voyeurism. So during 2018, I set a station in my house and photographed my neighbor. And I was trying to ask, like, what's the kind of the photographicness that cannot be replaced? Because from my understanding of photography, if we perceive it as a medium, this is easily to be replaced by other variety of media like drawing, writing, and also moving pictures. But I think my attempt eventually failed entirely because I couldn't say more with this kind of style. I cannot continue to play this role ethically. And so then I stopped taking pictures and go back to printmaking, or go to printmaking, and I make a screen prints and halftones. And so in 2020, in the year of COVID-19, I went back to Taiwan because I couldn't stay in the United States, the issue of visa. And during this time in Taiwan, I have a serious argument with my mother, the woman on the picture. I expressed my insecurity of being an international student in the era of pandemic, and my mother told me that I have no right to say it's difficult. And it was not until this conversation with my mother, I realized that she gave up her opportunity to study in the United States because her pregnancy 25 years ago, during the most difficult and political intensive time between Taiwan and China, she gave up her chance to escape from all of this because she had me. And 25 years later, I'm studying photography in the US, and the political tension between Taiwan and China continues. And this conversation and my experience going back to my hometown led me to think about my senior show, the over saltwater Guigamzi. And I incorporate with a lot of newsprint or halftone style, not the traditional way of printing images. Some of photograph I took from San Francisco, some of photograph I took from Taiwan. And this is trying to express or trying to speak to my identity as a really fragile or insecure existence, because for a lot of people, saying Taiwan is a sovereign state is a mistake. And so as like we perceive something just like a really not political intensive headline from newspaper. And realizing how close the war is to me, I essentially to present this my identity with the news with the halftone, using my grandpa's photograph and also my self-portrait. So on the left is my grandpa's ID photo, and on the right is my self-portrait. I use that as a base, and I use that for my screen prints. And that's the close-up of my screen prints. And here's the digital scan of my photograph. And this is myself finding the really weird connection of this flag. This is actually a ROC flag, flag of Republic of China, which stands right now for Taiwan. But this, I have this resistance and rebellion to this flag because it doesn't really stand for my identity as a citizen living through the colonization, or this also speaks to the colonization over Taiwan. But right now in San Francisco, I see this weird connection that actually stands for my identity. Yeah. And I want to end this presentation with a quote from a movie called The Great Buddha Plus. It's a black and white Taiwanese film from 2017. The photographs are in color, but our word is black and white. So I think that kind of speaks to my idea of going through this journey of finding my identity. When I realized when facing this political intention, we're almost colorless, we're almost not relevant as those politics. Yeah. And as of for after art school, I want to continue to do photography and photograph. I wanted to keep my camera, my little camera, and this rebellion also as my care. So to shoot, to take photograph. And here's my contact info. Thank you, everyone.
May I just begin, or is okay, I'm just going to begin. Tung, this is excellent work, and I'm so, what I'm really struck by is how varied these projects are almost. It's like I loved seeing kind of where you came from, in the sense of you started with medium and large format, and you were looking into other people's lives, right? Looking for human presence outside of yourself, outside of your home, to your neighbors, and then you go inward. And what I find fascinating is your choice of medium, and you're obviously very, very cognizant of and particular about why you're choosing a particular medium. You talked a lot about photography and moving away from it. And I'd love to hear you talk a little about why the halftone process, which is a process that I associate with the rise of the illustrated press. Like I think it was introduced in the 1880s, and it allowed for mass printing and photography to spread all over the world. And I'd love to hear how you kind of arrived at the halftone or the screen printing. I think those are really interesting choices.
So I think my intention using halftone as my primary medium for this project is to respond Takuma Nakahira's idea, like what the photography as a medium play in the role in real life. And I think photography has this quality of being a replica, or more precisely, a bad replica of reality. And because it's this awkwardness and the imperfection of replica that we realize is essentially a photograph. Yeah.
And how did you arrive then at the screen print? Because I do see that connection with the halftone and how, when you look so closely at a halftone picture, you see the dots that make it, that its origins, right? It's similar to the grain in photography, but it also speaks to the spread and dissemination of identity, or of, I guess, almost of a cultural identity, right? If you think about that, who's using halftone prints, it's newspapers and magazines, periodicals. The layman or layperson doesn't normally use it, and I think I really like that. And I also wonder if you can play with it in the future. From what I saw, those look like 16 by 20 prints, or maybe I'm wrong, maybe they're 20 by 24.
They're roughly 16 by 20. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And so I wonder if in the future you could think about like blowing it up. Like think about the movie, what is it? The Blow Up, the Italian film where they blow up a picture so they can see in the details, they find out who how he was killed. I can't remember the full story. I haven't seen it in 10 years, but I wonder if that's something you can play with. So like, because you're using maybe 16 by 20 pictures, blow it up more so that people are actually aware of your choice, your selection to use the halftone process. Exaggerate it a little, right? Because maybe people will just think it's grain, but you want to actually emphasize it, I think, because it's interesting. I actually can't think of work in the collection right now that is created through halftone, maybe like one or two, but I think it's great. And I wonder also if you could, if there's some other readings to do about it, email me at some point and I'll look in my files and try to find an article about kind of those dots and what we can, and how you can also spin a narrative more about that. Cause I like how you began your talk about the medium and your choice to use it. And another thing that I find interesting about your work is how you're also pulling from, yes, this is about identity, but you're also pulling your family into it, right? With like the picture of your grandfather, and you're thinking about identification photographs. And I'm wondering if you've ever done any other type of work that pulls from your own archive or your own family's history.
This is actually the first time. I never used archival images before then. Yeah.
And could you talk a little bit about your choice of an identity photograph, right? Like a versus like a formal portrait made for official purposes versus a family picture?
So my grandparents lived through the Japanese occupation, then goes from the Chiang Kai-shek occupation, and so identity photographs are that something was new to them because there was no public ID at the time, and so that was something new, but they had this resistance to it because deep in their head they don't think they're Chinese, they are not Kuomintang, they are not as same as people from the mainland China with Chiang Kai-shek. So they took those photographs because the order, and yeah, so I decided to use that. Yeah.
Excellent reasoning. That's like, I love that you've actually thought that through. Sometimes a lot of artists don't think through those kind of decisions. And I love knowing that you've actually taken a moment to, and it wasn't just maybe because you liked it, but there's actually a reason behind it. So that's fascinating. And seeing your whole project, those are all part of the same project, correct? And so those would all be in the same room, let's say, if you were to have a show? Yeah?
Yes, except from the 2018 series, the Windows series. but other halftones and other screen prints are all in one show.
Which makes for a nice varied installation. I think that would be really a fun room to walk into to see your work, right? You have like screen prints, halftones, and you have a cloud installation or salon style hang of those other works. And could you clarify those pictures that are in that cloud hang, those are San Francisco and Taiwan, or? And your journey, I'm guessing, over the sea, which is pretty important in that airplane shot. That one. The airplane window is a really significant picture.
Okay. Yeah. So that's the airplane. I travel from Taiwan to San Francisco airport, and most of them are taken in San Francisco, but there's some photographs in Taiwan, like some of birds, some of birds are taken in Taiwan, but mostly they are taken in San Francisco. I feel like there's kind of a displacement when I'm taking this photograph. So yeah.
And you can feel that by how you cover up the pictures. So you could have done this in so many ways, right? A salon style hang, you could have had space around each picture. But the way you do that, where you overlay the photographs on top of each other, speaks to a tension that you're feeling, that something isn't that you're blocking the viewer's vision somehow. There's something that we're not seeing, and I find that mysterious, beautiful, evocative, whichever term you want to use here. I like that, and I like how there's one that's off to the side, right? And that was a meaningful photograph to you.
Yeah, actually, next to the photograph next to the wall, I'm presenting my passport photo. Yeah.
Oh, the passport photos over here.
Yeah, this one. Yeah. So this one was friended. I friend this photograph and presented just like individually, but it was really close to this photo, to the flag photograph. Yeah.
And why black and white, if I may ask? I know that's because you could choose halftone in color, but I'm just curious, why black and white?
So Tung, before you answer, I hate to be this, it's like my least favorite job. So just answer quickly, because we want to be sure that we have time for everyone else.
Yeah. I will just wrap it up. So this creating black and white like photograph, I think it fits to my idea of using a photograph as a medium, because color photographs are more perfect in a way. That's what I perceive black and white images. They are more a imperfection and more imperfect replica of reality, or it stands for a different kind of reality. Yeah.
I'm excited to see where your projects go. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chena and Tung. That was really excellent. I'm just gonna, as we get the next student, I believe, David, you're next, right? Why don't you just prepare thyself? But Tung, I just want to congratulate you and tell you what a pleasure it's been to work with you and your beautiful mind. I think you have a really curious mind and an intellectual approach to photography that I've always really connected with. And I encourage you, just as Chena said, to explore the halftone. I love that you're making a comparison to the graphic quality of the flag and the passport and that half circle, or the circle being the sun. but it's also the halftone. It's also like the same graphic symbol. So I think that there's a lot of play for you there to keep considering all those elements. But anyway, well done. Thank you. David, you good to go?
Whenever you're ready, David, take it away.
Okay, thank you. Just let this thing do its thing here. Great, okay. Abner, can you see that? Okay, thank you. Tung, that was incredible presentation. Thank you. It's been incredible having you in class and seeing your work and your show exhibition at the Oliver Center as well. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is David Marchetti. I'm in the BFA photography program at CCA, and this is my senior thesis presentation. Before I begin, I just want to recognize Abner Nolan, Aspen Mays, Shana Lopez, and Ingrid Wells for hosting and being part of today's event, as well as family and friends in the CCA community who are here today. So just a little bit of background about myself. I grew up on a working farm in New Hampshire. My parents, seen here in the black and white photograph, met and married when they were in the late 60s. My mother raised Morgan horses on our farm in New Hampshire and worked for Dartmouth College. My father was a retired Air Force and was the postmaster in the town of Enfield, where I was born and raised. To the right is a photograph of me and my older brother, Scott, who's in the red t-shirt. That's me in the white t-shirt. And that's Ginger, our German Shepherd dog. And to the far right is my youngest brother, Robert. So at the age of 8, just to give you a little bit of, again, some background, I was introduced formally to photography when I participated in a youth art program in elementary school, where we made pinhole cameras out of old discarded oatmeal containers and created 2x3-inch black and white photographs of people and landscapes. And this is one of the few times in my life that I was immersed in a creative outlet until I arrived at CCA 3 years ago. So in terms of inspiration, I think for the last 3 years, I've really turned, my inspiration has really been painters instead of photographers. And William Turner is one of those inspirations for me. And Turner's use of oil paint in a broad, translucent manner to create scenes of vast light has heavily influenced the visual aesthetic of my most recent exhibition, Metamorphosis. When I look at Turner painting, I want to enter into the painting, and I feel like I want to move around in it and experience the energy and drama he's creating for his audience. And this is one of the effects that I'd like to have, in my work come through to the viewer as well. Again, somebody else that I'm very inspired by, and I come back to often and look at his, body of work is Jackson Pollock. And, I get really encouraged by his work, and I get, I feel like I feed off the energy, especially his energetic and fearless approach to attacking the canvas from all angles. It really motivates me to be bold and daring in my own practice, and proves to me time and time again that art making can have an unlimited range in which to express our emotions and feelings. And then lastly, I want to mention T.S. Eliot, somebody that I've come back to in the last 20 years and reading his work, especially The Wasteland, which is a dramatic monologue that draws on an abundant array of literary, musical, historical, and popular cultural allusions in order to present the futility and alienation of modern life, which I feel we've all experienced in one form or another these last 2 years, through the pandemic. I often read The Wasteland when I need reminding or again, encouragement that I don't need to follow any trend or the crowd, but really just follow my own internal compass. So in terms of my artistic journey, I've kind of laid it out in the last 3.5, 4 years. And I just want to show and speak to a few seminal pieces that guided me to the final thesis project today. The image on the left might seem inconsequential or even banal, but it became one of the first defining moments of my artistic journey, picking up a camera full time. I always thought of photography needed to be perfect or, in its execution, composition, or otherwise. But an inadvertent bump of the tripod started me on a path looking at my work and thinking about my work and creating images that were outside the periphery of what my peers were doing. And for me, that was really exciting. The photo on the right is my first attempt at creating a full abstract image within the camera with intentionality, where I was looking to express my emotions and feelings through color, form, and shape, just like the abstract expressionists had done in the turn of the century, mid-century, 20th century. By 2019, I began consciously moving away from creating traditional or representational imagery, seen on the left here, and started to explore more abstract narratives and world making within more complex and intriguing ecosystems for me. Diving headfirst into abstraction has become a means in which to express deeper emotions and feelings about myself and my experience in the world. Whether it's about family, politics, or trauma, this approach to art making has allowed me a great amount of freedom, one that I previously hadn't known in my work, in which to explore beyond the intangible. Another watershed moment came from my introduction to printmaking class with Anthea Black. Anthea really encouraged the class to bring their own practice into her class specifically, but experiment and play, translate the work into the printmaking process in some form or another. The images on the left here that you see speak to that, where I started to physically degrade and get my hands in the work and incorporate different textures of paper, which allowed me to see, what would happen. And all of this experiment really just gave me the confidence to keep pushing the boundaries, both inside and outside of the studio, with my camera and other tools in more interesting and intriguing ways. And lastly, I want to recognize Chip Minnick in his class, The 5 Obstructions. Again, a really important part of my education and my journey as an artist. The 5 Obstructions to me was very akin to an archaeological dig, where we were tasked to excavate, examine, and record, and discuss our art making process as we maneuvered through, particular obstructions, predetermined obstructions that were not only meant to challenge our art making skills, but also bring a visual power and wandering imagination to the work, free from limitations or restrictions, and push our critical thinking. The pieces seen here are just 2 of many examples I created in Chip's class that pushed me to consider more than just the aesthetic notions and the essence of abstract image making in my work, but also the psychological aspects of creating work itself. Which brings me to my senior exhibition, Metamorphosis. This body of work is a culmination of the last few years of trial and error, experimentation, frustration, confusion, and even some moments of elation along the way. As I mentioned earlier, Metamorphosis is fueled by the ethos of abstract expressionism, where I actively and intentionally use my camera as a tool in a variety of gestural movements to create blurred representations of the world. In the post-production process, I print the images on a vinyl substrate, which allows the ink to remain wet and allows me to manipulate and distort the work even further, taking it so far out of context that each piece eventually stands on its own as a new object. The results are colorful and dynamic landscapes that explore how the unconscious and the body interface to express emotions and states of mind, while considering the common ground that exists between photography and other disciplines. Metamorphosis is not only about transformation and change for me, but also about spontaneity, improvisation, and self-determination, while pushing the creative boundaries that lead to the unexpected. And it's the unexpected that I'm ultimately looking for and interested in as an artist. So just shifting gears, after graduation, my goals are to apply to a number of residencies in the US and then focus on my art making for the next year. And also to continue work on a personal project, which I started last summer, where I've been photographing and documenting the last active Shaker community in the world in New Gloucester, Maine, which I'll resume this fall and winter, pick that back up and live with the community over a number of weeks. And then also really important, which I haven't had a lot of time to do, is just to spend some really intimate and quality time with my wife, Angelique, which you see here. We want to travel, enjoy each other's company without having any schedules or pending deadlines pressing upon us. Here's information for my senior show, which is April 6th through the 8th. And then my personal contact information as well. And finally, I want to thank everybody that has supported me, challenged me, and at times kicked my butt at CCA. It's been a great journey. I'm looking forward to any questions, feedback, or discussions about my work. Thank you very much.
Thank you, David. I know, clap, 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 everyone's clapping. I love an artist who looks back and looks at a moment in art history, or just for inspiration, or just as a way to kind of bring everyone into your work. And it was really interesting hearing your focus on abstract expressionism movement in the 1950s, right around in the cold, right after World War II. And so there's a lot of emotion that you were referring to. And I'm curious about the emotion that you feel when you look at your work, because you use the words emotion and feeling, but I'd love to hear more precisely what kind of emotions you feel when you look at this.
Yeah, that's a really great question. I think some of it I'm still trying to figure out, you know, just because I'm so new to art making. But I think to answer your question, I think because the way I create is I feel like I'm in a zone, and I'm, you know, the world just falls away, and I'm focusing on like this work that I'm, you know, seeing here, this most recent work where I have my hands in it, and I'm really not thinking about, you know, getting a particular, I guess, you know, look for the work. I think you know, what I'm doing is I'm just approaching it with my hands in it, and I stop when I feel that it's right. So again, instinct and intuition, I think, play a really huge part in the way that I'm creating. And I think a very important way. And, you know, just also allow that, that opportunity of chance to kind of play in this work as well. I feel a lot of joy when I'm in that zone, you know, just to, you know, answer your question, like what I'm feeling. And I feel a lot of satisfaction that I'm, you know, I've developed this style and this technique that is really my own, that came out of mistakes and errors, and just this constant kind of asking myself, what if I did this? What if I did that? You know, and I'm finding that I think the best results for me have come out of just being relaxed and playing.
I think what I maybe didn't understand in your talk is how these are done. So you actually make works in the camera, right, and then that's one layer, and then you print that on vinyl, and then you play with it again. Is that correct? And curious, what are you photographing? Why have the camera? I guess I'm because a lot of these look so gestural, and I'm not sure that the camera is necessary because I don't see any kind of figurative or any kind of like window when I look at these into the world. I'm curious if you could just talk a little.
Yeah, it's another good question. I think the camera comes into play for me, Shayna, is being out in the world and photographing what I see. And it's really just the freedom of creating an aspect of what I'm going to end up doing with the work. And, you know, some of this work in camera is representational, but a lot of what I'm doing, like I mentioned in my presentation, is I'm using that camera almost as a paintbrush. I'm moving it in different directions to blur the reality of what I'm seeing. And, you know, I think you know, and then bringing it through the process, that post-production process, is just another aspect of me trying to, I think just trying to get that internal emotions on something that's more tangible. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Oh, it completely makes sense. Because
Cool.
I just have to think in the future, something you could just play with is not consider it post-production, but production. Like actually, you know, think about the abstract expressionists and like what they did in front of their canvas, like do the same thing. You know, use a photo developer or whatever, like, you know, throw it on the canvas, like see what happens. Because I see such motion and energy in the work. And I'm just not, I wonder what happens if you play just with that.
Yeah, that's I'm taking Jamie Knight's class right now, which is a alternative production class, and we're kind of doing some of those things, Shayna, right now, which is exciting for me because I feel like I can, you know, build upon what I'm already doing. And, you know, again, from what you just said, I think it seems to be this nice progression for me into this class and this alternative process mode.
Yeah, it seems pretty natural actually from what I'm looking at, and the references you gave in the beginning, whether it's Turner or Pollock, and the other comment I would have is about titling, and you have some you have titles and some that are numbers, and then tell me a little bit more about that.
Just, you know, the numbering is really borrowed from the abstract expressionists of the mid-20th century, where they weren't titling their work specifically like I've done in this one, you know, Midnight in Palm Springs, which is it's a strong reference to where I was photographing this particular image. But I didn't want too much of me influence or guiding the viewer in a sense. And I feel that that's what the abstract expressionists were doing with these ambiguous or numbered titles, that have the audience come to the work. How are they reacting, you know, viscerally to coming to this without very little of a narrative, either in the artist statement or within the title itself.
No, it's helpful to hear the decision-making process on it. Just because I do pay attention to titles. I pay attention when people do untitled and when you have titles. And then here, if you have a difference, you have like a numeric title versus a representational title or something that it will prompt me to think about something future. Yeah, and so you do all three. And so maybe in the future, I would say for a future series, think about titling and have it be kind of a thread that goes then through that full series. But that one's gorgeous. And I like that these are 45 by 30. I wonder if in the future you could go bigger. If this is vinyl, go big. If for something that, you know, that has so much motion, it looks like I'm, you know, feeling the energy just coming off of an ocean over here. But let me just look. And metamorphosis, the other question that prompts me to think about is, what do you change from what to what, right? When I think about change, I think about origins and what are we changing to? Like, what would be the subtitle? of this? Like if you were to give it a subtitle? And I know, I think we have like a minute left, so.
Okay. Yeah. I'm not sure, Shana. You know, it's not only a metamorphosis of the physical work, but it's also metamorphosis in terms of myself as well. Because
That's interesting.
I'm coming
That's
from
interesting.
a non-background of art, and you know, coming into this, I feel like I've completely changed when I first started 3 years ago. How I'm looking at myself, I'm looking at the world, I'm looking at my work, and the best way to express myself, I don't know if this is it, but this is a part of it, I think, you know, and yeah,
It's beautiful though to
I'm
hear
looking
that it's more of an identity kind of search as well. It's not just a formal kind of experimentation with photography. It's also about you too and growing as an artist. Yeah.
So
Thank you.
cool. Thank you, Shana. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. Thanks.
Anytime. It's beautiful work.
Thank you.
Thanks, David. Great to see. You know, I remember first having you in class, and it's really interesting to see your transformation and to see you kind of grow in your own confidence to make this work, which as you narrated, that's part of your connection to those painters. It was really interesting to me that you didn't note any other photographers who work in large abstraction. Like I'm thinking about Ellen Carey's like giant Polaroid pulls, just different photographers who have challenged the notion that photography needs to be figurative. So it's really interesting that you align with the painters, and that you sort of always have. So I really encourage you to kind of embrace what Shannon was saying, and maybe the camera's just in the way. Your final thought. Don't you love it when your teachers are like, yeah, great, great in your photography degree, maybe just no, it's great to see. Thank you so much for the thoughtful presentation.
Thank you, Aspen. Thank you for that. I appreciate that.
Next up, we have Sam Gonzalez. Sam, you ready for us? I guess so.
Oh, wait. Wait, sorry, I meant to unmute myself, not do that. Okay. Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Samantha Gonzalez, and I'm a Mexican-American artist born and raised in Los Angeles, California. And I started back at CCA in 2017. And that's when I became infatuated with darkroom practice and analog photography in general. It really turned photo into a craft and a creative outlet for me, something I never really could get out of digital photography, because with analog photography, it stayed more hands-on throughout the whole process of making. I also believe that my practice lines up with my concept unconsciously, because I do it for the love of it, but when I look back at it, it really starts to inform myself and like my work that I'm making at the time. It even sometimes becomes contradicting to me and like my concepts. And I say that because of this work right here. The work is about our attachment to things and holding onto items so dearly that they become a part of us, and losing an item would be like losing a close friend. And then here I am creating these prints that will become a part of me. So while talking about material attachment, I'm becoming materially attached by the work. But of course, it's more than that. It's also about society's need for materialism, consumerism, and the domestication into society. I made this work back when I was 19 and renting my first apartment and working jobs that I could barely pay the rent and a lot of credit card debt. I was stressed and angry, and this was the way of the world. I felt really trapped and had wished working to live in comfort was more comforting. Now this is my most recent work, Pájaro Perdido, that I will be showcasing at my senior show for my senior thesis. The title came to me through my sister's story she wrote about our grandmother's life, hardships, and passing away. The work is a collaboration of her creative writing about our family with my own photographs and lost photos I have collected and recontextualized. But the idea for this work came to me during the pandemic and my grandfather's passing away. I was spending most of my time archiving boxes of family photographs because I had felt a strong need to reminisce and reconnect with old memories and my grandmother's stories, wanting to feel love and nostalgia in the small captured moments we had together as a family. But the truth is, the stories that live alongside the photographs don't match up with the facade my family put on. I know that this is the case for maybe most family photos, because we each know our own dark family history behind each smiling photograph. The work symbolizes how I felt living through my own family trauma. And when I look back at my family photos, they feel so performative, but maybe they're not trying to be. Maybe I just can't unsee all that happened. And I think that's why I enjoy collecting strangers' lost photographs, because to me, they only hold the perfect moments that were captured. I don't get to know the broken home hidden behind their facade. And then here's an excerpt from Pájaro Perdido, written by my sister. I collect pieces of you, hard memories that were never mine to begin with. I wish I had asked you myself, but I was too caught up in the present to think about your past. Now I construct an image of you with nothing but fragments, borrowed and unverified moments. I admire the strength that was beaten out of you, but never quite broken. I know that your soul soars, still dancing among wispy clouds. And then this is my artist inspiration for this particular work. Susan Mizelis, or Mizelis. Her work is, or like you might know her more for her Latin American work, human rights, her documentation of human rights issues in Latin America. Susan Mizelis is a documentary photographer based in New York. But this is her most recent work titled Tar Beach. It is probably one of my favorite projects about family photographs and stories. The project took place in the heart of Little Italy and invited former residents to come with their family albums and contribute pictures to display in the storefront windows around St. Patrick's Old Cathedral. And what I like most about this work is it transcends from a workshop to an installation and eventually into a book. It also feeds my curiosity towards found family photos because the images live alongside stories, and the stories of these people that I don't get to get out of the found lost photos that I've used and I've collected. Plus the photos are really beautiful because of how perfectly they are shot, not like technically perfect, but the order that they hold. The image is perfect because the moment was perfect enough to photograph, capturing that feeling and allowing it to live on. And I like this quote by her that she wrote about this particular project. In Tar Beach, the photographer is invisible, and families and friends face the camera with trust, expressing the pleasure of presenting themselves to be seen. Each encounter was a moment captured to celebrate. These photographs are now fragile objects. Their torn edges reveal the hands that have held and kept them to pass on, not knowing this book would become their destiny. Yeah. You should really check out their work too. They have a website and it's really pretty and nice little experience because they also have videos of like overlaying stories on top of these images, and like you get to hear the people's voices, and it's really nice. And then my future plans after I graduate. I am planning to hopefully just get a job in design or photo because I really would like to expand on graphic design or web design and get the most out of this BFA. And honestly, just make work for myself. I feel like I've been making work for college and classes and to showcase, and I just really want to get back to like feeling what it's like to just make work and to create for myself without having to feel like, is it good enough? Is it for someone? Is everyone gonna like it? And all those artist feelings that all us artists feel. So yeah. And then here's my contact information if you feel so inclined to reach out or check out my website. And thank you to everyone who's listening in and for your support in these last 4 or 5 years. I'm happy I got to know every single one of you, and I hope I continue to know you. And yes, thank you guys.
Thank you, Sam. That was lovely and fantastic. I'm wondering if you could go back to some of your pictures. What struck me the most was this idea of collaboration with another family member, and how I'm curious how that kind of came about. What did the words came first and then your project, or was it like a conversation between you two?
Yeah, I think like me and my sister had fell out of touch a little bit after a lot of drama and things, and like during the pandemic I had to move back home, so we had kind of reconnected, and we were going through a lot that we like went through growing up, and we were kind of talking it out, and it felt really nice to like, you know, finally just like have a connection with someone about the same traumas that we like went through and experienced, and like having an understanding. But like with going through that, we like realized that we both kind of like, I photograph things that are expressing that, and she had been doing a lot of creative writing about that. We were both like trying to find these outlets to, you know, express that and like move on from all that had happened. And yeah, we had talked about for a really long time, like, oh, we should like do something with it, or like maybe make a book. And then I have my senior thesis coming up, so I had asked her if I could use some of her writing in this series of work. And yeah, and hopefully after this we can like actually get more collaborative and make a book or do something more with it, because this kind of feels like more for me and I'm borrowing her stuff, even though the book is like, the story is particularly it's called the same title. So
I don't think it's borrowing. But I do like the idea of future collaborations together with text and image. And so I'm clear, the pictures in this series, they're a mix. Is that right? They're a mix of your own family pictures and found, right? Or
and my own.
And your own. Okay, so so you have kind of 3 different threads. And is there a way that you're differentiating between those 3 threads in like is it, are like some smaller and those like reference the, or is the viewer just supposed to mix all of them and not supposed to know?
Yeah, I think for me, I'm trying to like just let it be like a mixing pot. And that's why I kind of like recontextualize some of the lost photos that I printed in the darkroom and are gonna be like these particularly, because I don't want people to necessarily know. Yeah.
No, that's helpful for me to understand, because when I see these pictures, I feel, and I don't know if this is your intention, but I feel incredibly sad when I look at these. And not sad because it just, they feel like these, I mean, like, I guess the title Lost Bird or something, it's just like, there's something that I'm missing. Like, it's sad. I feel nostalgic. I feel, and it's the same emotion that happens whenever I go to a flea market and I find a group of pictures that are now have been separated from their owner. And I think about death. I think about, you know, what happens to those stories, the stories that you need to be able to be part of that world, be part of whatever is pictured. And I mean, I'm curious to hear from you, like, what emotions are you hoping to, do you think your viewers, what would you want them to feel when seeing this project?
Yeah, I think honestly, like that feeling that you described when you find those photos, I definitely feel those too. Like, I feel sad for the photos, and I like kind of can't let them go because I feel sad for them, and like I'm like I have to keep them and like somehow like allow them to live on. And definitely like I spoke about like why I wanted to like pair my sister's writing with it. Like, my stuff is just like knowing that there's like dark stories or like trauma or like family drama and things that happen behind these like family photos, and they are sad and they are hurtful, and they're all the things that I feel like the dark borders help do as well.
That was actually my next question about how you're printing these, and if it's the dark border around it, and also just so I understand the scale that we're talking about, if you could just elucidate or tell me about that.
Yeah, so I did these 7 32 by 40 murals in the darkroom, and I did do the like all black backgrounds with them. A lot of masking and figuring out what to do.
I mean, it works. And I have to say, I love that you include landscape pictures in here. I think that's a nice like rest for the eye in some ways. And not like there's emotion with those landscapes, but I think, sorry, yeah. Is that a found picture, or is that your picture, the one on the left with the fallen down, dilapidated
The house?
Yeah.
Yeah, that I took many years ago. And it's funny because a lot of the pictures that I've chosen that are my own photos, they're like pictures from like years ago, or like just like from my own collection of stuff I was going through. And they were more because I just like would pick things that I like to photograph, and I never really like knew. I was just like, oh, this is like nice and I like how this looks. But now when I like look back at it, I like kind of, it was like unconsciously like intentional what I was photographing, like internally, and like thinking about wanting to photograph like lost, left things, decaying things.
Yeah, no, it perfectly fits. It's actually quite fascinating that it's from years ago. I wonder, what kind of collaborations you could do with your sister moving forward, whether it's photographing together, having text over it, or even there's one picture that you presented that was almost a collage. And there was an overlay, right? That one. That one's really interesting, and it's really different though than the others. And I'm curious as to see what you could do with that moving forward, whether it's with found pictures, your own, or your family's pictures. Is that a picture that you took behind it, and then what's happening? Okay,
Definitely.
but I like that.
Yeah, it was like strange that it like paired so well, and that's why I like wanted to use it.
I think your intuition is strong, and you should listen to it. That's it's a really dynamic picture, and I like knowing that that it has multiple sides, that it's like there are multiple identities being portrayed here, right? And so whether it's found or not, I think you should push that. And even torn pictures showing like the decay of some of the found pictures, I think would be really interesting to think about their materiality. And because that is part, like I wonder what's going to happen in like 30 years, because we're not going to find like albums at flea markets anymore, right? They're all on people's phone. They will just go and die somewhere, these sad photos on our phones. And so there is something to be said about the material decay of these found photographs, and you're obviously interested in entropy and kind of and loss and those kind of ideas. So I would play with those things more.
Yeah, I definitely think like the image, this one particularly, the landscape one, the one in the middle, when I print, because these are like digital mock-ups that I made, when you like see the print itself, this one definitely has like, you can see like the scratches on the like photo itself, or like it's like bent and like kind of crunched in the middle. So I definitely think like the images of that I printed in the darkroom, like you get more of that rather than like seeing it on the screen.
I mean, you could also think about having your own picture printed and then adhering a found picture to it, right? Not having it be a reproduction of the found picture. So to give it almost kind of not a sculpture, but like to give it that sense and give it that layering technique that might be really fun for your viewers. And last question, because I know we have just a second left. Are you titling these at all, or is it just the title of your series?
They have like, I have like my own little titles for them just to keep track of stuff. But no, like for the show itself, they'll just be on the wall representing themselves.
That's great.
Yeah.
Thank
Well, thank
you.
you. Thank
Yeah.
you so much.
Thank you, Sam, for sharing. I know it's family photos, and thinking about past trauma is, it takes courage to be able to talk about that kind of stuff with people. So thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Sam. That was awesome. I haven't seen any of this work. I heard rumors that you were in the mural room, so it's amazing to see it. I feel like get some great installs, because I was wondering what was on that bottom, and I guess that's the sweep of the paper, right? Like that's a sort of like long print, just kind of curled up a little bit.
The little like black ledge thing. So I actually presented those on PowerPoint the way that I want to like put them up on the wall. And Carly, she gave me a great idea on like installing them like and like letting them sit on like a little wooden ledge.
Beautiful.
And so that's what I was kind of like,
Beautiful.
I wanted to like put them as if I was putting them up. Yeah.
Okay, take some great installs when you have your show, because I feel like that seems like a really key part. And I love that you shifted the scale, because it takes it out of finding it like those some vintage small scale images and makes them kind of larger than life. And I don't know, it's beautiful. It's great to see where you've taken the work. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Thanks, Aspen.
Thanks, Sam. Next up, we have Kat Conrad. Kat, whenever you're ready, take it away.
Okey-doke. Okey-doke. Okay. My name's Kat Conrad. I am a photography BFA student, and I have a minor in history of art and visual cultures. So my work is pretty much at this point all nude and semi-nude photography. So content wording, lots of nudity, but also I talk about trauma and body dysmorphia and drugs briefly, but you know, that's kind of the gist. So like I said, my name is Kat. I was born in Staten Island, New York. I spent far too long living in Florida, a good chunk of my life, and I currently reside here in San Francisco. So I was exposed to art at a very young age. My aunt, who's actually here, shout out, is an artist. She made sure, like, she's a painter, a pianist. She made sure that I was going to like art. The piano was very short-lived. I'm not very good at instruments, but she did bring me to a lot of museums, which was very influential. And honestly, just her support in general is what led me to be here. So back in high school is when I switched to art, but it wasn't right away. I started in science. My junior year, I was really lost. I had just dropped out of STEM. My brain was like really in it, but my heart was like, this is not your path. Like I realized like I was living someone else's life. And then I went with my aunt to Mount Hood in Oregon, and I just started taking photos. This photo in the corner is one of my first ever photos I took, and I was in love. I started out in nature though, and clearly I'm not nature anymore. And then this photo in the corner is of my mom and I when I was probably a few years old. I'm not exactly sure where that photo is taken, but my childhood was very traumatic. And art has been very helpful for me in expressing that. But I was mostly focusing on things that weren't about me until 2020, when I started, during the pandemic, started taking photos of a friend of mine who suffers with body dysmorphia. And those photos, I was like, I'm taking these of you during your weight loss journey because I want you to feel beautiful no matter what. And like, those photos were like spark for me. Like this photo, Drowning, from 2020, was the first photo I had ever taken fully nude of myself, which was extremely hard for me. I have always been very self-conscious. I started remembering like the trauma that I had about my body and the insecurities I had. I spent all of my life getting very interesting comments about my body. I've always had more adult features, and I got my grandmother always telling me, your boobs are too big for that. You can't wear that. You look like a hoochie mama. And I'm like, thank you for the self-esteem. But that's kind of why I started doing nude photography. So my inspirations are like photographers that work with the ideas of classicism and mythology. From left to right, my influences are A.J. Hamilton, who is a English photographer, and this image is Venus. This one specifically was very influential for me, along with Olympus, because mythology was just so important to me. But I also have Laura Sheridan, who's a Belgian artist, and Anna Martinez, who's South American. And I'm really inspired by these people because of their willingness to push against the status quo. I love the romance, the fantasy, the elegance, and I love their influence on diversity and feminism and their ability to just challenge what we know art is. I feel like we're kind of in a renaissance where art's breaking out of the typical like white male box. And I'm trying to make sure I play my part in that. And I feel like these artists have been making like really major strides in like the way that they create work. And that really motivates me to keep creating. These types of images are types of things that I want to make because it takes traditional art and just flips it on its end, because the art world has always been very whitewashed, and I think it's very important to start reimagining the past with people of color especially. And I put their Instagrams in the corner if anyone would like to follow them. So here's the beginning of my work. Most of these images are from my recent exhibition, For the Love of Natural Beauty, my senior show, which is all about embracing your body and highlighting your insecurities and imperfections and changing it into something beautiful. So these photos specifically, surface tension and chlorine, are very like water heavy. I've always felt a connection to water. It's something that's made me feel safe. To me, it's kind of like a blanket. It engulfs you and like wraps around your body and forms to you and like reveals everything. And I chose these are all shot in a bathtub for the most part. And I chose a bathtub because I feel like it's like the most intimate space where you're the most vulnerable, and you have to find comfort in that. And you have to, like, as an artist, in order to achieve my vision for this work, like my number one thing is I have to make my models comfortable. I have to get them to trust me with their bodies and like develop genuine friendships with them. And that's what I intend to do with everyone that I shoot. I want them to be the most genuine, authentic versions of themselves. So continuing on, these images, Belisama and Mimir, these titles are based in mythology. Like I mentioned before, mythology is very, very influential. It was always something in my childhood. I liked weird things, So I chose names that are based on their water spirits. And I chose these specific titles in relation to namesakes and to cultural backgrounds. Yeah, so these photos, sorry, losing my train of thought. These photos are not exactly the same feeling as my inspirations, but I feel like they are ethereal in their own way. And they still have the romance and the drama that I see in my inspirations that I want to contribute to my own work. These especially were images I really wanted to include because they highlight the body in a way that isn't typical, normal. Especially, I realized things like shoulders are not ever talked about. And I really enjoy really close-up shots and just focusing on little details. And that's kind of where I started going. So these are also were part of my show for the love of natural beauty, but it was a shift towards something a little bit different. These are when I started like working more in the studio. I decided that I didn't want to just take photos in a bathroom. And I started playing with different lighting and the idea that these are in a studio, but I want to make them feel intimate. So that was my goal, was regardless of location, I wanted it to feel vulnerable and like you really had to like go in and look at it. This Untitled piece and like the chest area of Fever are things that I'm really happy with, because I really wanted to focus on, I don't know if imperfections is the right word, but you know, blemishes, goosebumps, tattoos, stuff like that. I'm really interested in, and I love that I can capture the little details like a pimple on her butt or the goosebumps surrounding their nipple, you know? And those are things that I'm really interested in. Is I feel like I see the world in a different way, and I want to express that, and I really enjoy details. I'm not a big picture type of person. I'm like, I want to pick apart everything. And I'm feeling like that's something I get to do, but doing that with nude photography. So after graduation, I applied to CCA's master's program. I have still not heard back, but if I am lucky, I will be here. So I'm crossing my fingers for that. But recently, after my show, I started working on a semi-candid side project, which I'm really excited to keep working on. My goal is capturing really like truly happy moments or peaceful moments. And that's something that I want to continue in my MFA. These photos are heavily inspired by Nan Goldin's Ballad of Sexual Dependency, because I love like candid, semi-candid work. And I love the way that she looked at it and like the way that she created art. But I'm taking that idea and I'm doing it in a not gritty whatsoever type of way, like flipping it to like the other side of the coin. But I just feel like when someone's like unaware or laughing or interacting with other people, that's when they're most compelling. I find those moments of tranquility and I turn them into art, and that's all I want to do. And then continuing, hopefully in my MFA, I want to try to work with more people with disabilities, different skin conditions, different body types that I haven't photographed, because although diversity is something I care greatly about, the models I have access to is what determines what I make. And I need to branch out more to get new people in order to represent as many body types as I can. But other than that, my main goal is to just keep learning, making connections, and improving my work. And in the end, I just hope that I continue to push my own boundaries and present the best version of myself through my art. But yeah, these 3 images are completely unedited, but they're from my most recent time of taking photos. Going back to Nan Goldin, I did shrooms and I was like, I want to do drugs and take a photo and see what happens. And I fell in love. I was like, this is a crazy experiment and I hope it looks like this when I'm all done. And it did. I really enjoy them. They're all untitled right now, and hopefully they will continue to blossom and I will continue to make work like this. And then, sorry if you can hear that. But yeah, that is it. This is my contact information. My website is currently under construction, so it's not here. And thank you to Tony Bernardo for taking this photo of me. I really appreciate all of you guys. Thank you so much. Shout out to my aunt for being here. I really appreciate her. And thank you.
Thank you, Kat. Thank you for sharing all of your work and being so honest with us. Just first, a technical question. What kind of camera are you using? Is this like a 35 millimeter large format? If you could help me.
Yeah, I use a Canon 80D.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm strictly digital photography. I don't do film.
So one photograph that I'm really drawn to is the first one you showed us, the black and white one that kind of.
Oh, right. Yes.
This
Forgot
one,
it was there.
Because the self-portrait here, I think, is important to your story, because photographing other people, you need to, in their most vulnerable moment, I think, to be able to turn the camera on yourself is another kind of way to go about this, and to not to like show in solidarity, but like, you know, it's a really sensitive and scary place to be, almost on the other side of the camera when you're nude. And so I think in the future, I know you want to photograph other body parts, but I also think photographing yourself is important, and to keep photographing yourself, whether it's like doing it daily or, you know, like something where like you're also part of this this project, or this larger project for yourself. And then I would encourage you to think about maybe going into medium format, so that these images can be larger, strong. Like I like the idea of how closely you're looking at whether it's at the body, whether it's goosebumps, hair, a pimple, whatnot. And I think that the grain or the quality of a larger format might help. Another idea is that the inspiration that you showed us, the three photographers, I have to say, I'm curious what would happen if you go into the studio and like put a backdrop down and maybe not go so close. Maybe go in close for some pictures, but like zoom out and see like what the whole body tells us, because that's also giving your subjects agency, right? That they're presenting their own body. It's not just like an arm out of context or a breast, but like see how they present themselves. I think that might be also just a visually, as a curator, when I think about work in a gallery, I like to have some dynamism to the space. I want my eye to go in and out. And so if all the pictures are so close in, that starts to look the same. But like if you zoom out, and so then I almost have to step back, it just creates this nice dynamic. And so just in the future, maybe like when you're with a model, try kind of that as well. I'm curious what would happen if you have like backdrops in there, right? And you do have people act out whatever story you may want, because that's what you're attracted to. At least.
Yeah, that's definitely something I want to work on.
Yeah, I mean, and it's interesting that you're thinking that you named all of those works water nymph type of connections. And I wonder what happens like if you read more into those stories. Like what happens if you share a story with a model or a subject or a friend, and like see what they come to the table with, right? Like how do they connect with it in some way, or go out of the studio, out of the home, bathtub, go into nature, go back to what you started with, right? You said you were that you were attracted to the natural world and you were a nature photographer, right?
Yeah.
Like what happens if you go somewhere, like go to the to a lake or an ocean or whatever, another body of water, so that I don't see a bathtub? I think that actually would be really fun. And I'd be curious to see what you could come up with. Because you obviously have a good eye, and you're attracted to these details, but like the details in nature would also just like bring this up to another whole level where you'd have grass and rocks and think about like the tension that could be created between the body and the natural world. And I'm curious, I'm curious why the bathtub? versus the natural world?
I went back and forth. I did start doing more photos in nature recently, so I'm excited to continue with that. That's something, definitely appreciate your feedback. I think I wanted control for sure. I definitely, like, I have issues giving up control. I'm trying to be free with things now, and that's what I'm trying to go towards. But at this point especially, I was very much like, I want control over this. And I just also was like, this is my first fully nude shoot. I didn't want to make people too uncomfortable being out in the open. This was in like one person's bathtub, and we just had people cycling in, and then they were hanging out in the other room, and you know, we would go back and forth.
I mean, just that story in and of itself is really interesting. Like the pictures also that you could take of people waiting to, you know, go into this bathtub. I think it's fantastic. That part, I really enjoy hearing that. And that it was almost a cycle, because that's not how I imagined it. When you were talking, I thought that, like, you know, you hung out with this person for like a whole evening, and you know, it was a couple-hour thing. But I mean, that's really interesting that, like,
yeah, I have like little parties with my models, and we just hang out, and then I like bring people in and we do one thing, and then someone else will come in.
I mean, okay, so yeah, I wonder if you could take pictures of that narrative too, like show the whole experience, because that's different. That's really, I like a little photography party almost that you're having, which is, that's fantastic. The other reason why I'm mentioning maybe trying outside or in a backyard or something like that would be, I think the sunlight would be really beautiful to have more of like highlights and shadows in this work. I feel like there's a lot of midtones in there, and I think it would be nice to have some more contrast. Could we go to the fever picture in that whole page? Like, I like seeing that you're using lighting in that one, and like the modeling that is happening there. How did it feel to use that, like artificial lighting or flood, whatever, however you did this?
Yeah, I genuinely love the lighting studio. I love working with lighting. And so it was fun to go back to it after doing so many, like the whole pandemic, all of my art was in my little home studio, you know, so going back into the studio was so wild. But it was definitely nice to be able to manipulate like the feeling of it, and like be able to kind of squish it in and make it dark and make sure it doesn't look like I'm in the studio. And I think without like the proper lighting, that's kind of not that easy.
Wait, sorry, can you just repeat what you said? You said that to make it not look like you're in the studio?
Yeah.
I don't know if you know. But so thinking about the inspiration that you showed in the beginning, those are like conspicuous. Those are very studio pictures, and I'm not sure you don't need to shy away from being in the studio. And I know we have like, you know, just a couple of seconds to go, but I actually think foregrounding the studio is kind of nice. It makes it more transparent what the interaction is, and yeah, I actually, because that one does look like a studio picture to me, but I like it. And so was there a reason you chose red? Is it just like the color of intimacy, or, you know?
Yeah, I've always been very attracted to red, and I was going through colors, and I was like, these don't feel right. And then I got to red, and I was like, this feels like how it's like intimate and kind of romantic, but at the same time, it's like in your face. And I think like the drama and the romance of it is something I really enjoyed.
Great. Thank you, Kat. Thank you for sharing your work with everybody here.
I really appreciate your feedback. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Kat. Great to see and hear you talk about it. And you sounded really calm and collected and confident, and that was really exciting to hear. And next time, throw in an install shot of that that kind of sculptural piece. I feel like that's a really interesting
I didn't think
direction.
about
I know, sorry, insider information, but
that.
would love to see that because I think that's an interesting direction too. But anyway, congratulations.
Thank you.
Our last and certainly not least presenter is Lavender Wen. Lavender, are you ready for us?
Yes. Wait. Sorry about that. Hi, hello everyone. I'm Lavender, a BFA student in photography. So I was born and raised in Sichuan, China. I was born in a small mountain village where life is calm and slow. So I remember like in that time, summer evening, when everyone in the village, we just sat down under the tree and talk while children run around it. So it's a pretty nice view. So I stayed on that big mountain until I was 3 years old, but I still miss that that slow way of life. So that's why sometimes I just stop to find a quiet place in the city right now. So my work often explores the relationship between myself and the environment I live in. I think that people are often influenced by their surroundings. The environment I grew up in also has a lot of influence on who I am right now. So sometimes I prefer to quietly explore my surroundings. Yanzi, a Chinese photographer, is the person who influenced me the most during the middle school. So looking at her photos made me slowly like fall in love with the photography. I like the different angles of the work she took. Like she also reading a couple of the books. Her works and photo are very self-healing, and when I feel powerless, she always rekindle my love for photography. She gives me motivation when I want to give up. Pierre Rivera's photo also inspired me a lot, especially her photo taken with color film. She received her grandfather's film camera during her childhood and has then been exploring her surroundings and sharing her like memories to everybody. Like flower market, farmer markets, and various buildings are her favorite place. She liked to shoot a picture. She's good at like capturing the little joys of the life with her own unique perspective. Her works are always full of the rich and the vintage color. Like I love it. So I am captivated by it. She makes ordinary things in life look very special way. So in my junior year of the high school, I came to the United States, but I didn't speak English well. So therefore I couldn't like to talk to people and couldn't find the models. I slowly adjust to taking picture by myself and thought it was a very good way to, I can spend the time alone. So I didn't want to leave the California after I graduated the high school. So I attended a community college here. When I first entered the college, I felt very uncomfortable and I didn't know what I want to do in the future. So in the community college, I took a class on black and white film and introduction to photography. So I learned about the film and I tried the darkroom. Then I fell in love with the shooting using film. I also love the unknown surprises that films brings. The limited number of the frames in the film forced me to think before I press the shutter. So I feel more accomplished when I create the photos manually. From SFII to the CCA, I have taken a lot of photos. My favorite style of photography is still life. I'm addicted to being myself with a camera and shooting what I like. In this set of photos I took last year, I was inspired by Vietnamese photographer Vo Xuan and a Japanese photographer Tanaka Tatsuya. I try to use different methods of photograph food that I see every day. The entire creation process is very enjoyable to me, combining the tiny figures and the different foods to form a new world of little people. Also using different colors of the background, create a strong contrast. Color is so important to me in like a lot of my artwork. So my artwork is very color conscious and color permeates almost every corner of my life. I'm so attracted by the different colors. This is my current work. It's called After Midnight, and it has been exhibited. I photographed a series of city buildings and unique scenes after midnight. Since the pandemic started, I've been sleeping in every day, and I feel that the hours that I'm awake should be cherished and not wasted. So sleep takes up most people's life during the night, so few people really notice the city when it's dark. Many things are overlooked by people at the night, so I started wandering around the city with my camera. After midnight, the streets are almost empty. The stores, big and small, still have their lights on, but no one's in there. Standing on the street, I feel incredibly lonely. The cold building looks mysterious and scared in the dark, but the flashing neon lights reminds me that is a real world. Yeah, so after looking at the building, I started looking for people who were still awake in the city. I went to some of the stores that were still open and talked to some of the people who were still working. Occasionally, I would order a beer or bowl of noodles, just sit down to enjoy the solitude the late night. Behind the neon door, I saw a completely different world. Like I see a completely different way of the life, but I think this one is a vibrant one all the same. The scene from cameras often show the city and the life we know so well, but there are also some lifestyle we are not familiar with, a life that other people live unnoticed. The city is asleep, but I think it's dreaming for a vibrant life tomorrow morning. So I shoot the whole series on film with 35mm and 120mm. One disadvantage of the using film is that it's a time consuming to sit up before to catching the right moment. But I don't think it's a problem because like at the midnight, things don't change. Yeah, so for my future plan, after my graduate, I hope I can go back to China. Yeah, because I haven't back to China for like 3 more years. So I want to travel to some city in China and like taking some picture of the landscape, the people from there. Yeah, so that's my future plan. And then I don't really know, maybe like to get a job when I back to America. Yeah, so thank you all for watching my presentation. That's my contact information.
Thank you, Lavender. Thank you so much. Your projects are so different. This project that you just showed after midnight, and the one of the little models, little sculptures. But what is, I guess, the connecting thread between them is the excellent craftsmanship that I see, or technique. You have a really good eye. Your composition is spot on. It's dynamic. You also, in your first project that you showed, if you want to, could you go to one of the ones where you do like close up with the oranges and the other way, with the oranges or the broccoli, whichever. It's just you have like these are fantastic. Number one. Number two, you do the color that you're choosing, the contrast that you see with like the red apples, the slices of orange, and there's just like a fun sense of humor. How did you end up starting this project? Where did you get these little people? Like what? Like tell me a little more.
Yeah, because I saw some Tanaka photos on the Instagram, and I was wondering how can you like set up the narrative in a home. So last semester I have a lighting studio class, so I'm trying to use some lighting studio, small studio in my home to create some narrative. So I bought this small figure on the Amazon. It's so expensive. Yeah.
I mean, they're great. I didn't realize you could just like buy like a whole set of them.
Yeah, there have a lot of people, so I just want to choose some very interesting thing. I like to create a very colorful thing and very like daily life of somebody picking the fruits, like a vegetable, like in the garden, like that.
Well, and I wonder what you could even do in the future with something like this, where you choose people maybe that look like your friends or yourself or your family, and like set them up into everyday life that you create. It's just like these are, go to the next one, like the broccoli one. I mean, I was laughing, like these are really humorous. Like that's, I love like the hills of broccoli that I'm seeing, and they're so much better than those apple pictures that I just saw like on a billboard of like, I don't know if anyone has seen those, the close up of fruit. These are great. I wish these were up there. But your choice of color and vibrancy here carries over into your next project, the After Midnight. And are you by yourself when you're doing these?
My boyfriend go with me.
Okay.
Yeah, I need somebody to protect. It's scared at the night.
Well, because I can feel that there's something a little scary, a little mysterious. And what city are you taking these in?
The South Bay area, like Cupertino, Santa Clara, San Jose, all the city. I just go around.
And are you driving there?
Yes.
Or is this more of a walking tour?
Like the driving to some very busy area, then walk through each like street.
And so on purpose, you choose, it looks from these pictures, it looks like you choose to find spaces where it's like there's a human presence, but not a human present. Yes, I can see somebody like in the car there, but generally, is that what you're looking for?
Yeah, so I took a bunch of the photos. Like at the first, I'm more focusing on the empty street, the empty gas station or something like that. But when I took tons of the photos, I realized I wanted some color in the dark, in the midnight. Why I can take some color photo in the after the midnight. So I just go through all the storm to find somebody who still working there, or like there have a lot of like neon lights on the wall to shining the bright up the whole, like the city, the whole house. So just at the end, I just go through all the streets to find some stores still open and some stores still there have a lot of lights on it.
These are, yeah, that one's perfect.
But that one is awkward, so I took that because still have some people like walking by it.
Yeah, well, because it's interesting because like they're almost filled with people. Like all I do is think about the people in these scenes, even though there's no one present that I can see, right? I don't know if everyone else feels that way, but I'm just waiting for somebody to walk out and to who's going to adult world right now, like, you know, or who's going to the psychic at midnight. It's actually pretty amusing that there were so many cars parked in front of the psychic's place of work at midnight in Cupertino or wherever. But I think these are interesting, and I like hearing that you also talk to people that are up at night. And I'm wondering if there's a way to incorporate that into this project, whether it's maybe one day you think about making a book about these kind of pictures, and like maybe it's called, and sorry, you called it After Midnight, but I do like knowing the place, even though this could be anywhere. But then if you see a lot of cars, you always will then see the license plate, and that will kind of place you too. But I wonder if like in between sections of a book, you have somewhat like a narrative that you, a conversation that you had with somebody that you actually met. I'm just trying to think about how to bring out the people that I feel in these pictures, even though they're not there, right?
Yeah.
And it would also be interesting to see you kind of plot these places out on a map and like think about like where you're going, and maybe like are you scoping them out in the daytime, or you and your boyfriend are just like driving around and like you randomly see neon and you're just going to it?
Yeah, we just driving around at the night because, you know, after the pandemic, so like we are more enjoyed to go out at the nighttime because we don't need to like wear the mask on it. Yeah, so like yeah, at the nighttime there have a lot of different view, like if you stand out at the same building, but it's, for me, I think it's totally different feeling when you looking at this at the daytime, and yeah, different with when you're looking at this building at the nighttime. So I think, yeah,
it has a whole different aura. The neon, and it's not just the neon that it's the nocturne, right? And
yeah.
I think it'd be really fun for you to look at the history of nocturnal photographs, or these nocturnes, whether it's Tsai or the Stieglitz. I'm just trying to think about, it's like people had always tried to take pictures of the world at night because it feels like there's something happening, right? They always feel pregnant. They always feel like there's fertile ground for like something, whether it's something maybe that we can't talk about, or I don't know. It's just mysterious things happen at night. And so it would be interesting to see your take on artists who have worked at night in the past and what they find, and think about how your work fits into that. And yeah, at some point I can also give you a list of photographers to check out if you'd like to see some of that.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and I hope you do continue. I know that you're hoping to get a job, and you know, but these are good photographs, and I hope you do continue to play with the camera and use that humor that you were playing with in the beginning with that lighting studio, because those are interesting
Yeah,
Wow.
I definitely to continue like using the film camera because I'm so enjoy with the film camera.
You
Yeah.
can see that in the pictures. You can see that you're enjoying it. And that's really helpful. I wonder, I do wonder though, what other worlds you can create, not just in fruit, but
Yeah. Yeah, like I think there's a lot of things like very basic thing in your ordinary life. You can use them to create a very very humor, very interesting the thing.
Well, it's, and we have to stop, but it's just interesting that a lot of them are like old white guys. Is that right? Or these little figures. It's just interesting, like they're a different age than you. It's just it's interesting to think about who you're portraying and like what other people you could portray in that kind of made up world. But thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lavender. Thank you, everybody.
Congratulations, Lavender. You sounded great. It was really clear and easy to understand and wonderful to hear you talk about your work. And I'm just gonna second how much I love the humor in your work. We talked about that last semester. You have a way of finding some really funny things out in the world. So I would love to see all of that come together as well. But thank you everyone so much for coming to this afternoon and for all your hard work. And Shanna, thank you so much for your thoughtful, generous feedback for our students. It really means a lot.
Happy to do it anytime. I love hearing about what people are working on, and I hope everyone knows this is a very safe place to talk about your work and here to help. And I love and I hope my questions make you think about your future projects.
And I second Abner's recommendation to check out Constellations at SF MoMA. It's a really, really beautiful show. Really enjoyed spending some time there. And Abner, thank you so much.
Thank you, Aspen, for steering the ship so beautifully this last year. And thanks to everybody who came to support your friends, your family, and these terrific 5 students that I've had a great pleasure to work with this semester. It's really been a joy and highlight of the last year for me. So thank you all for showing up today.
And we've got the exhibitions next week, right? They're all opening another round.
Yes, so if you enjoyed seeing Sam and David's work in the tiny little box of your home computers, imagine how beautiful it will look on the walls of the galleries when it's up next week. So please come and see their shows starting on Monday.
It's at Wattis?
It's actually all the way on the Oakland campus at the Oliver Art Center. And it might be, it's not the last week, but you have 2 or 3 more weeks to see exhibitions in the old Oliver Art Center, which is, to throw it way back, is where my MFA show was. So anyway, this group of folks are shutting it down. So please come out and see them and support them and pour a little out on the curve for the Oakland campus while you're at it.
Indeed. Well, best of luck with install, everybody. I'll see your shows next week, but good luck. Can't wait to see it. And thank you for all the thoughtful presentations. And congratulations on finishing college.
Yay! Congratulations. Bye.
Thank you guys.